So now I'm going to start the glass work on the body, and what I'm doing is I'm covering all of the sheet metal that I welded in. In theory, all you really need to cover is the seams where the old metal and the new metal meet, and you don't want moisture and things penetrating to there and then creating rust. However, I'm going to cover the entire thing with it, and the reason I'm doing that is because with the long strand fiberglass, it'll create more structural integrity to it, just because you have the long strands crossing across this sheet metal to this sheet metal to this, so it just creates more of a bond. And to further that, what you have to do is when you put any kind of body fill on bare metal, you have to scuff it up first, and it doesn't like to stick to shiny, smooth surfaces. So what I'm doing is I'm using 40 grit sandpaper and just going over all my metal, trying to get as many. If you make it look cloudy like that, what you're doing is it's really just very, very tiny, small, abrasive scratches in there, and the fiberglass and the Bondo will stick into that, into each one of those scratches. And you want to make sure that you sand it off at least an inch above where you're going to apply the Bondo. So you can see I kind of tapered it into the paint over an inch higher than the actual welds. So throughout this project, I'm going to be using 3 different kinds of body fillers. I'm going to be using long strand fiberglass, short strand fiberglass, and then regular Bondo. So use them for different applications. So for example, areas where I have to kind of build things or kind of build things up, or have large gaps in the metal, I would be using long strand fiberglass for that, just because within the fiberglass itself, within the filler, there's strands of fiberglass, so it looks like hair. So you use that for areas that have larger gaps or holes, or you can go use up to pretty large size holes for that. So you do that to kind of cover up any imperfections, make sure that there's no water that can get in. So like I said, any place that there's a seam, you want to make sure that you fill that in with fiberglass, because that's watertight and then it won't rust out. So in this application right here, the seam's pretty tight and there aren't any large gaps. So in that case, I'm going to be using short strand fiberglass to kind of fill this entire patch up. And you want to go extend, further out, like about an inch out of wherever you had your welds. Had this been more of a sloppier weld and it had larger holes or things like that, and like some of the other areas that I did, or if I needed some kind of structural shaping, then I would use the long strand fiberglass for that. And then afterwards, I'm going to apply Bondo body filler on top of that, and then smooth that out, and that's going to be more of a cosmetic thing. The Bondo isn't watertight, but the 2 different fiberglasses are. So G-wagons come with these little plastic pieces here, and what they are is that's where you would attach any kind of trim pieces along it. So G-wagons come with like these rubber strips going along it, and the thing is that these theoretically prevent rusting from happening, because you don't want to screw directly into sheet metal, because then you're for sure you're going to get rusting. but this kind of postpones it a little longer before it eventually happens, because you can see they get rusted out too. I've applied different patches, like filled these ones in on this fender just because they were so big. I tried to add more metal to it. So I'm going to keep these ones, the trim pieces, but the rockers also have these same trim pieces, and it's like a big rubber piece. And every single 460 model G-wagon that you will ever see will have rusted out rockers. And this is one of the prime reasons, is because moisture and salt and things get between the body of the truck and that rubber piece. And the rubber itself, the piece that they use, has a steel, kind of like a piece of steel sheet metal inside that as well. And that kind of keeps the structure of it, so it's not like all floppy. But if you get a little puncture into that rubber, moisture and stuff gets inside that metal, and even the sheet metal inside the rubber itself, those get rusted out too. So what happened when I bought this truck is one side had it on here, but it decided to eat a hole through my entire rocker panel. The other side was also completely rotted out, and that one was gone. The screws, the places where the screws were holding it in place, they got rusted out, and then who knows, someone was driving down the highway and the whole rubber trim piece fell off. So I'm just going to get rid of it altogether. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to create little circles, little plugs with this sheet metal, plug them up, and just get rid of it altogether. It'll save me the headache of future repairs later down, and it'll kind of maintain this little restoration a little bit longer. I don't anticipate it rusting as quickly as if I have more access or entry points for water and salt and road grime to get into. All right, so now I'm going to keep working away and try to fill up the rest of these little plugs that I did. So this stuff dries quickly, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to hold it in place. Spreading it on. I'm going to need that. Just a thin layer, and pushing it into the little pinholes that I left when I did the welding. And now it's just a matter of letting that dry, sanding it down, and then repeating the process on the other side of the truck. So this side of the truck's going to require less work from a welding standpoint, just because there aren't any huge chunks that are missing out of it. I just have to recreate this lip here, weld these pieces together, plug that hole in the rocker panel, and I still have to look at the other side and see what I have to do. But if you remember, when I was doing this one, you see how rusted out the welds are? It started raining as I was in the middle of the process of doing this. So, and this one was exposed to direct rain, the entire time. So you can see there's a lot of surface rust on here. So I have to grind all this out, clean up all these welds, apply the fast etch in there, and then I'll apply the short strand fiberglass into here, push it in, and ensure that no more water can get in there. So it's going to take a bit of cleaning and repair, but no major welding aside from that section, and then I have to plug this in. Alright, so as I was preparing these previous welds that I did, and started grinding them down just to get the paint off so I can apply the body filler onto it, I noticed a little bit of Bondo over here, so I started investigating, and lo and behold, I missed this the last time around when I was doing the patch panels and stuff, and it was just completely filled with Bondo. I mean, he did a good job at hiding it. It was actually very well done. The only problem is Bondo isn't waterproof, so I have to get rid of that. I plucked it all out. I'm going to clean this up, weld in some metal, and then apply fiberglass to that. And I just checked the weather. It is apparently going to rain in about 2.5 hours, so I need to get all the bare steel covered up and apply the fiberglass to what I can, and then apply fast etch to everything just so that it doesn't flash rust. Alright, so the holes are welded shut and it's all scuffed up. Now it's time again to apply the short strand fiberglass. It's the end of day 17, and I had to cut out a little early only because it's about to storm. So thankfully I worked on fiberglass today, so all the bare metal that was on the truck, or the majority of the bare metal that was on the truck, is now coated in fiberglass and is watertight. So when it does storm tonight, I don't have to worry about water getting into any of my welds and things like that, and creating any surface rust or flash rusting. If you take a look at this, covered these patches with short strand fiberglass. It needs to be sanded down and then covered with Bondo and then primer. This section is now complete. This whole entire rocker was done. Patched it up, put in the fiberglass, and plugged in. There was a bunch of little holes in there from where the rubber trim piece that runs along the rocker goes, and I plugged those all up since I'm not going to use that anymore. It really is a bad idea to have that on there anyway. And then this side of the truck, I completed the rear quarter right here with fiberglass. Patched it up. Well, I got a little surprise here. There was some Bondo on there, and I plugged in the holes with sheet metal and then covered it with fiberglass. This section was not completed today because it's going to take me a little bit longer, so that'll be my project for tomorrow. And this rocker was done, so that's all covered in fiberglass now too. I addressed all the welds that were kind of getting a little bit rusty, so I cleaned them all up, put fast etch on there, ground everything down, re-welded some little bits in there, and covered it with fiberglass. So the truck is almost complete actually. It's only the second day that I've been working on it, and I took this fender off because it needs more work. There's a lot of small little patches in there, and so I'm gonna have to grind down all the paint on there, remove that all, look at the welds, make sure everything's good, and then apply fiberglass to that. And since there's so many small little ones, and I was expecting it to rain, so I quickly took this thing off and brought it inside the garage, just in case. But luckily it didn't rain until it's just starting now. So this wheel well needs to be addressed, some small little issues. I put a patch in here before. We'll have to clean that up and then apply fiberglass to it. There's a hole here going into the tub, so it's going into the engine compartment, and the previous owner put a bunch of Bondo in there, and Bondo is not watertight, so when water was getting in there, it was just rusting all around it. So I'm gonna put new metal there and then cover it with fiberglass, which is watertight. So tomorrow, rear fender, right, the rear passenger quarter panel needs to be done, and then I'll probably work on that front fender, fix that all up and get it good to go. And within 2 days, by the end of the week, hopefully this thing will be completed, at least ready for primer and paint.